tonight on Real Sports.
Your neighborhood just got cooler with Kroger Delivery's refrigerated trucks. Simply order groceries at the same great prices online as in-store, and we'll bring them to you fresh every time. And if that wasn't cool enough, you can now earn 4 times the fuel points after 4 with your digital coupon. Choose a next-day Kroger Delivery time slot for 4 p.m. or later on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Must deliver by February 4th. Restrictions apply. See Kroger.com for details.
When it comes to towing, seeing is believing. That's why Chevy Truck's advanced camera technology offers up to 8 available cameras for 14 unique views, so you can focus on the view that really matters. Chevrolet, together let's drive. Learn more about Chevy Trucks at Chevy.com. Safety or driver assistance features are no substitute for the driver's responsibility to operate the vehicle in a safe manner. Read the Vehicle Owner's Manual for important feature limitations and information.
Hey Atlanta, say hello to Small Business Help from Apple. That's right, we're here to make starting and running your business simpler. From helping you choose the right devices to setting them up hassle-free, we can help you build your business in no time. Speak to a business expert and get the help you need at no cost whatsoever. At Apple, we're open for your small business. Go to apple.com/smallbusiness or visit an Apple store to learn more.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
This episode is brought to you by Intuit TurboTax. Didn't file with TurboTax last year? That's in the past. Now, Taxes is getting the TurboTax app and filing your own taxes for free if you didn't file with them last year. File by February 18th. All tax forms, all 100% free. Now, this is Taxes. Intuit TurboTax. New filers and filers who didn't use TurboTax last year only must start and file your own taxes in-app by February 18th. Excludes TurboTax Live. Full terms at TurboTax.com.
Welcome back to another exciting edition of the Pointless Exercise podcast. It's time for a very special podcast where we've brought together all of your favorite co-hosts from all of the various Pointless Exercise podcasts. So joining me here is the Remember This Crap co-host, Mike Donohue. Mike, how are you?
Happy New Year, Andy. Good to be here.
Our David Brown, a Hall of Fame voter, David Brown from our baseball podcast. David, how are you?
Hi, Andy. I'm doing great. I can't wait to reminisce.
Glad to have you. And both of the Mike P's from the football podcast, actor, comedian Mike Pusateri and Mike Praznowski. Guys, how are you?
I'm in a reminiscent mood.
Merry New Year.
So we did this last year. It was a lot of fun. We decided we'd do it again. We even have an extra person, so that makes it even better. And I don't remember what we did last time. It was that much fun. So I thought what we would start with is just what are we going to remember 2023 for? Does anybody want to volunteer? They're searing memories from this wonderful year. And
I feel like someone from the Remember This Crap podcast should.
It's way too recent for us. Now, if you're going to ask us, what do we remember about 1983?
Okay, let's start there.
Guys, everybody here covers the current teams. I'm here for the Bob Avellini and Mike Vail references. So, Hobie Dietrich.
You're just here to look up whether Bob Thomas missed an extra point. The gift that keeps on giving. Every time we go back to a game from the 80s or late 70s, Bob
I thought of a
missed
good
at least
transition.
one. Oh, go ahead, dude.
Mike Donohue mentioned Bob Avellini, and his name came up on Twitter today because the Browns are on the verge of starting their 5th quarterback, and they're going to make the playoffs. It's the first time since the 84 Bears when Avellini was one of those dudes. I can name them all.
Rusty List, Jim McMahon, Avellini, and Steve Fuller. They have 4, and then Greg Landry.
Greg Landry.
Wow.
Yeah, Greg Landry.
So I thought maybe that would turn us into what we think whatever the hell's going on with the Bears right now.
Well, you can go down to that rabbit hole when you connect Bob Avellini to Mike Phipps, who we all should recall was the other quarterback chosen in the first round of the '69 draft, which the Bears famously lost on a coin flip. Didn't get Terry Bradshaw. Mike Phipps, was the other one. But
I always thought it was because they beat
Mike
the
Phipps
Steelers for their sole win.
Yes, from Purdue, Mike.
Yes, thank you. Let's make sure we're credit.
I knew you were coming from.
Get the plug in.
The cradle of quarterbacks. Let's not forget when we
It
bring
was.
up
I gotcha.
Well,
Even
to
David
Praz's
Herman.
point, though, didn't the win necessitate the coin toss?
Correct. The only win
Had
of
they
the
lost,
season,
they wouldn't have been a coin toss.
which was at Wrigley Field, they crushed the Steelers 38-9. It also wouldn't have mattered. I'm honestly, it's pure revisionist because the Bears were absolutely at some horrible depths. The Steelers had begun to turn it around. Joe Green and Bradshaw actually would not become a good quarterback for several years. Actually, but it's fun to speculate, I guess.
So what do we think is happening with Justin Fields? I saw some stats, and they're not great. I mean, I've seen the plays, the individual plays that he's made, and it's intriguing. But I combine the stats that he's accumulated and the fact that Matt Eberflus and Luke Getsy, and I don't even have to finish that thought. Is he going to, since they appear to be staying, does he even have a chance to develop?
I think the stats that you reference, I'm not as in-depth, but a lot of the guys will cite the fact that in his third year, he's behind so many quarterbacks. And I think, they're equally convinced that means that it's sort of I think Fields is unique, though. I think he really is the exception of so many factors, not the least of which is the historical ineptitude of Bears management to begin with. But I don't know.
Well, we had a rather lengthy discussion about this on the Bears pod this week. And it's really, he's a victim of them. If the Panthers had won like 4 games this year, 5 games this year, there would be no conversation. That pick wouldn't be 1 or 2. It's going to be 1. And they wouldn't be in a position to draft one of those 2 quarterbacks. He would just be the quarterback. He's established himself as a bona fide starting caliber NFL quarterback, which over the last 50 years, the Bears have not enjoyed much of that.
Right.
So it really just comes down to what do you think his ceiling really is? And then we talked, I prattled on a long time about you have to figure out what you have to pay him. The unfortunate thing about wasting that first season with Nagy is he's 3 years in now, not 2. You get 1 more cheap year, and then you have to decide really this year if you're going to pay him the $25 million 2 years from now. And if you do that, you're really locked in then because you're not taking a quarterback this year then if you're going to keep him, which means he's your quarterback for the next 6 or 7 years. And he's probably conservatively a $30 million quarterback then. So his timing for Justin, he's stuck in an awkward spot.
I'm curious, Andy, that scenario you described, that if Carolina not had a so-called lottery pick or whatever, wouldn't they still need to make a decision going into next season about locking him up, and how would that roll into it? I mean,
well, I think they would, but it would be really hard to make a case if you weren't picking first or second that you could get a quarterback as good or potentially better than him.
So you'd have to
so
lock
then
him
you'd be
up
like,
then,
well, we
right?
can't do any better than this. Why would we fuck with this?
Yeah, but why do we operate under the assumption, though, that you have to draft within the first 5 picks to get a franchise quarterback? I mean, the evidence supports no such thing. You could roll with Fields in 2024, and you'll have 2 first-rounders next year. I mean, good quarterbacks, this year for playoff teams, you got Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, Lamar Jackson, he was 32nd, Dak Prescott, 135th overall, Jalen Hurts, 53rd, Joe Flacco, 18th, Russell Wilson, 75th, and plenty of bad quarterbacks have been drafted number 1. Bryce Young, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold was number 3. The great Mitch Trubisky, we should never forget, was number 2 overall.
Mitch could still work out.
He might be okay. There's no reason.
Steelers are still alive, yes.
Yeah, there's no reason to me, there's no evidence that says you have to draft one of these 2 guys. As if these two guys are.
That just brings it back to Dave's original point about the numbers, though. Like, as much as we can ascribe all of those qualities to Hurd and Purdy and all that, I think their numbers might rank better than Fields. So I don't know. I leave that open, but I think there's a reason for their success. I listened to your podcast last night. I mean, you make points. I mean, he does things you've never seen before, but I don't know. I don't put it on Fields, his faults. I put it on the fact that his whole progress has been, as we're kind of alluding to, just sort of stuttered from the beginning.
Absolutely.
Right, and the decision has to be made on what you think he's going to do, not what he's done.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pay for
like Jason. Like sounds like Jason Hayward.
Well, just do that. Then just pay him like a great player, and he will become a great player. That's what Theo did.
He'll deliver a great speech before overtime in the Super Bowl. Sorry.
I mean, that Jason Hayward would have come in really handy for the Niners in the Super Bowl against the Ravens when they had the power outage.
Right.
Yeah. That was a game that was in need of a weight room speech. Maybe he did. Maybe he gave it to the Ravens. We didn't know he was there.
Well, I think Mike P and Mike D both have two good points. Mike P's point being Caleb Williams or Drake May aren't necessarily the guys, and they're not necessarily the only guys you could pick to be that quarterback that leads you. So I'm not sure if the Bears, by locking up Justin or just going that way or going some other way, are ignoring the answer to the question by not going for that first pick in the draft and making a cornerback. I'm not sure that that person is there. I'm not sure that they could do anything with that person if they got him. And Justin does do some things on the field that lots of guys don't do, and you should be able to work with that. I can see a scenario where maybe the right coaches and the right attitude and the right play calls will make him a better player. And I think the stats haven't been great even when he's been better lately. But again, like other people have said, maybe we can blame the Bears for that.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
There are a lot of ways you can go, and most of them are bad. Rest assured, the Bears could screw this up regardless of which path they decide to take. They can drive right into the ditch, with him or without him. So,
yep,
we've got that going for us, which is nice.
Oh, maybe we'll get lucky this time.
Does anybody have a good rationalization as to why Eberflus is still going to be the coach?
Go ahead, Mike D.
I just feel it seems weird because he was all but gone, it felt like, after the Denver game and before the Washington game.
They're 7-5 since then.
They play for him.
Yep.
And it is hard. And he's like, somehow when he lost the Porty guy, his defensive coordinator, Alvin, whoever that was, is that even true what it was? Am I slandering him? I don't know. When he had to actually focus
Just
on
don't
the
slander
defense,
Jimmy Kimmel. I don't want to get sick.
But like the defense turned it around. Now, granted, it probably coincided with the arrival of Montez Sweat. But I don't know. Like I feel funny saying this considering where I felt 3 months ago. But I don't know. I don't know that he should be fired. Sounds crazy to say.
You don't hear that a lot, but you make a point.
I know.
I have no problem with him bringing the Flus back.
No, me neither.
No problem. You have no problem.
I have no problem. Now, that doesn't mean that a year from now I'm going to think, all right, this is the guy. Next year is his Ricky Renneria year, right? Got to prove it. You're giving out what everybody thinks is going to be a playoff team, and if you don't make it, then you're out. And that's when we'll bring in the new guy. But yeah, they played for him. The defense has played really well. It's a big part of it is Sweat, but it's also that after that Denver game is about the time his entire secondary decided to get healthy and actually play. True. And they're good. But he's done a really good job with that defense. And he danced around the question yesterday, but it does sound like he's just going to stay the defensive coordinator next year. They're not going to hire a defensive coordinator. They'll hire another defensive assistant, but he's still going to call the defense because he hemmed and hawed, and then he said, "Well, I really like to do it," which to me meant I'm just.
I do think Poles had some capital to blow if he wanted to. It was his first hire. Eberflus, as much as the team rallied around him, still blew 3 games in historic fashion. I feel like
if they had won one of those 3 games, they'd be playing for a playoff spot Sunday.
And now he's definitely staying if that happens.
Right.
I feel like every time we talk about the Flus, it seems to me like the reasons for keeping him are pretty similar to the ones we heard for keeping David Ross. He has a respect of the locker room. The guys play hard for him. The team improved from the year before. He's a good guy. He represents the organization. It's all very similar to David Ross.
We've mentioned Ross and Renteria now. I suppose if there was some 800-pound gorilla, and Dandy, I know how you feel about Jim Harbaugh. That wouldn't happen anyway because he's way too. Is there anybody even out there that would suddenly make you change course and say, well, not only would it not, is that not even work in football? Like,
he's bringing Joe Madden.
Right.
Joe
Madden coached the Bears.
Joe played football in college. He'll tell you.
Belichick, is he too old? Belichick's available. Like with that, I'm just throwing it out. I'm not even being serious. I don't even know what the deal is, or if he's way too old, or what. But that'd be the only scenario. It's like you don't fire him just because he pissed you off this year. It'd have to be a David Ross, Rick Renteria situation where you suddenly found an opportunity to bring in somebody that would take you to the next level. I don't know if it works.
You mean like Tony La Russa? Is there a Tony La Russa?
See, that's what the Sox did the opposite. They did what Renteria. Renteria got whacked because they had Madden. The Sox whacked Renteria, and then they sat around for a while and then decided to hire La Russa. It was the most ridiculous decision. But
how have they never hired Harold Baines?
Well, maybe they did, and Harold just never spoke up about it.
That's true. He's in the dugout, just nobody knows. Is that his statue? Oh, that's Harold. Shit. Somebody put a mirror under his nose and see if he fogs it up. Well, I think the David Ross thing is I don't want to say it's a good comparison, but it's a good comparison. And the same thing should happen next year, where if you don't make it, somebody else. So thank you, Matt, for the first season they basically took all his players away from him. Some of them it was almost like they were taking guys off the field while he was using them. All right, Roquan, why don't we? Where's Roquan? Oh, he's at Baltimore? Oh, we still got big play Bob Quinn. Oh, he's gone too. He had to be the good soldier the first year. Lost 11 in a row to finish it. So this is really his first year of coaching like a football team. He got off to a terrible start. And then they've been pretty good since then. But that doesn't mean that next year, if this team you have to take that next step. If you don't take it, somebody else gets to coach in 2025.
Do you look at him? Does anybody look at him and go, "This is a guy that I think can lead the Bears to a Super Bowl victory"?
I can't see it now, but you never know. I mean, people think about that about Bill Belichick in 1998 either.
Right.
Well, sure, yeah, fair enough.
They seem very similar to me, intellectually.
Yeah.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
Belichick kind of got laughed out of Cleveland. He took him to the playoffs once, but it was like he kind of failed out with them. And I don't know. Like you're not that until you are. So yeah, no, you're right, Mike. I mean, I don't see it today, and I took as many shots at the guy a few months ago, and look at that. But just look at him, and they're games. But
we're all too young. Praz wasn't even around. What if we were in this podcast after during the 1983 season. And we're like, would you look at this crazy fucker with the orange hair and the perm who's punching lockers in Baltimore?
Yep.
Is this really think this asshole's ever going to win a Super Bowl? And he's the most revered coach in city history with the one Super Bowl.
And he's not, of course, he was never a great coach, but I used to always say he was the perfect coach for the 85 team, a team that was just oozing with talent. They just needed somebody to kind of yell at him and whip him around and all that. And it took Ditka a little bit, and he almost burned himself out. But that's an excellent comp on that respect.
And not just that, wasn't the exact opposite feeling being had about Wani when he was hired by the Bears? Like, here's this top assistant from Jimmy Johnson's staff that seems like the next great coach in waiting.
That's how dumb we are. So, we were like, when the Bears got him instead of the Giants, we were like, oh, we're on our way now. Now we can't get rid of the son of a bitch. He's on every post-game show. He's on everything. It's like we all forgot what a disaster he was. Now he's an expert.
Like, people weren't anti-Ditka because he had a lot of cash because of his time as a player, and he had been entertaining as hell in those 2 years. I mean, Eberflus is very drab on top of it, but when the Bears were losing Ditka, that's where the whole, here's your IQ, buddy. That was like 82, 83, I believe.
Yeah, the other thing that Ditka
broke his hand punching a locker.
I think that Ditka did is the Bears were such a malaise throughout the 70s, right? And
decades.
He was for decades, right? And he was the guy he was the opposite of that. He was the guy who was like, okay, there's a guy who finally has some fire, gets it, and cares.
But they had talent, and that's the point. I think it's like, that's the thing that's undeniable about this Bears team and that one that Finks built. Like, all of a sudden, like, they were just a few players away.
But as Ditka will remind you, there came a time when I was the guy with the fire and the passion, you said that was the wrong thing. Yes, remember this crap?
No, that's me. No, don't crap me, man. No. Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies.
Missed that segment.
I was a 2-time caller on Who You Crapping.
Congratulations. You want to reenact them?
Bobby Cox, when he dissed Ryan Sandberg in 96, I got to call a hillbilly wife beater, and Dan McNeil was like, oh, the gloves are off.
Oh, that predated.
He said Mark Lemke was a better defensive second baseman than Ryan Sandberg ever was.
That actually predated Boers and Bernstein. It went all the way back to Mack and Boers.
Yeah.
Goes all the way back to the first season of The Score when Ditka popped Boers with it in 92, I think. Yeah, I was pretty quick. That was 96. It had been on for a few years by then.
How did that come up that Lemke was a better defensive second baseman than Ryan?
Because they were heading into the World Series in 96. Cox was just hyping him up. And he I don't know, he had a bug in his ass about it, like a lot of people did, because like Sandberg was like just so good and did it effortlessly. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But and I think also Sandberg was living on fumes then, came out of retirement. Maybe not just Joe Morgan had resented that, but he wasn't winning Gold Gloves anymore. But for some reason, Cox decided to just say how much better than Sandberg Lemke. It was hyperbole, it was hype, but I had to call it. It was crap. I had to be called out on it.
Good job.
Thanks.
Nice.
So there's an article in the Athletic today about that David Simon from The Wire immediately jumped on and debunked. It's about this guy in Baltimore who got thrown in jail for being an accessory to murder. He was a drug dealer and his nickname was Bird. And in the story, they claimed that the character Bird from The Wire was based on him. And Simon immediately said, no. Now, nice fact checking. You could have called me, the guy who wrote it. I would have told you that no, that's not true. But I'm reading it, and he was talking about the whole story is about the fact the guy finally got paroled, and he got special permission because he was a Baltimore Colts fan, and when he went to jail, they were still the Baltimore Colts. He got special permission to take a bus to Indianapolis and go see a Colts game. And in it said that his last Colts game in Baltimore before he got locked up was an overtime win over the Bears. And I'm like, that's the game where Ditka broke his hand.
Punch the locker.
Yep. The one where you broke the lamp with the stuffed football?
Yep. Boy, that's amazing that you... I also thought of that. I'm like, ooh, that means it's been like
40 years.
40 years since I broke that lamp.
That was early. It's a good comp. That was early in Ditka's second year. And, he did bring the fire and the passion, but they were still a last place team in 82, but it was a 9-game strike shortened season. So they actually were alive for the playoffs till the last game. But they got off to a slow start. They had back-to-back overtime losses, one in New Orleans to the Saints and then to the Colts. So they stumbled, and Ditka, broke his hand punching a locker in Baltimore. But they finished. They were just like this team. I swear, look it up. There are some comps, and I've been thinking about it the last few days. Obviously, if you're an optimist, you're thinking about it because that marked the ascension of the only true golden era of our lifetime for the Bears. But I do see some parallels.
Well, and that's got to get you excited. Then Sunday, the Bears-Packer game is on CBS.
And that was week 16 and 83. I'm started to turn this into who you crapping, but
yes,
that's how the 83 season ended. Bart Starr had a chance. The Packers had made the playoffs the year before in the strike shortage when a bunch of teams made it, but they had not made it since like 1 year or a few years after Lombardi. They were in a dark age of their own, and they had given Bart Starr about 7 or 8 years as coach. And if the Packers had beaten the Bears, they would have legitimately made the playoffs that year, and Starr would have kept his job. But the Bears came back late, and the aforementioned Bob Thomas actually succeeded in putting one through the uprights. But yeah, young Jim McMahon was healthy. Like the Bears were showing what they would become. So they had just been eliminated, this Bears team was, and they knocked out the Packers. The only difference was it was at Soldier Field, not Lambeau.
Well, there's so many. I was going to say there's so many parallels because we talked about the last time the Bears won at Lambeau was the Brett Favre jersey retirement night when Jay
2015.
And that was like Bart Starr's last public appearance. They propped him up against the goalpost, and he was so shocked by Jay not throwing an interception that he died right on the field. I think. I don't remember, but it's something like that.
He's still alive, but
Brett Favre is still alive. Bart Starr is not still alive.
Yeah, Bart Starr is no longer with us.
Oh, he is? I'm sorry. I guess I missed it, or I just haven't remembered it. All right.
Is Fred still alive? I think he's gone too.
The parallels to 83 are all coming together. Who won the NFC Central that year? Detroit Lions.
Yeah, they were the Billy Sims at running back. Gary Daniels.
Almost beat the 49ers in the playoffs.
They did. In fact, Dave, that game's on YouTube. Eddie Murray missed a kick that would have sent them to the conference title game, which would have been, one of their only 2 victories since '57, since when they blitzed Jimmy Johnson and the Cowboys in '91. That still remains their only playoff victory since '57. Which is funny because when that happened, everyone was like, we were in college, most of us. Whereas, again, you weren't even born. But when the Lions won their one playoff game in '91 with Barry Sanders and future Bear Eric Kramer, was like, wow, the Lions haven't won a playoff game in 34 years. And guess what? That was 33 years ago? Since.
I saw something on Twitter a few weeks ago that someone made a joke saying, and this turned out to be true, John F. Kennedy has only not been alive for one Lions playoff win.
Wow.
Yeah.
He was their good luck charm.
Exactly.
Big Lions fan. People didn't know that.
Well, Patriots were probably shit back then, so yeah.
Fuck them.
Not when he was a senator.
Right.
It's an 82 Bears-Lions game, where my favorite Bears quote ever from the book, McMahon, with an exclamation point, where he quotes Jay Hilgenberg. It's 1982. Hilgenberg standing on the sidelines. Bears are getting their ass kicked by the Lions, and he tells somebody just randomly, he's like, "We're the worst team in the NFL, and I don't play. I'm the worst player in the NFL." All right, so what was the most surprising thing that happened in 2023? I will submit that it is. You could have knocked me over with a feather when this happened. I was completely blindsided. David Ross getting fired by the Cubs.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I just stared at people were tweeting at me in celebration, and I couldn't tell what they were excited about because it just did not dawn on me that was a possibility at all. And then it happened. And the Cubs have just gone with that, and they have run, man. They can't improve this team fast enough.
Yeah. Got the entire population of Japan on the Cubs now.
More than one person pointed out as soon as Council was like, well, I hope that the Ricketts don't look at this as like, wow, you did so much with so little in Milwaukee. Do it again here. And then we were kind of reassured, no. Council would not have taken the job unless he knew he'd get some real resources, but...
Yeah, what do you think? Looking back now, what was that conversation with Jet? Was it like they just hey, Craig, how would you like to make $8 million a year for 5 years? Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
and then
sounds good to me.
And then later, like, oh, by the way, Jim, what are we looking for improving the team? We're not. Oh, well, I still get the $8 million a year for 5 years. I'm fine, whatever.
I'm good.
I'm not moving.
I'm
I'm still living in Mukwonago or wherever the fuck. I'm not.
That might have been it. I mean, we're joking, but that might have been it. I mean, we know now and kind of knew before that it was Council's desire to advance not only his own salary, but that of any manager. You know, the bar was way too low for anybody. So I think that was, I don't know if they lied to him about who they were going to get, or if it wasn't that important to him to ask because he was getting the money. But I think, the big salary was huge for him.
Well, and also Dave,
complain about it. That,
like in this particular situation, and I don't know where around Milwaukee he lived. He's south suburbs or what, but it's such a minimally disruptive move comparatively, to any other job in baseball because he already lives. Like he's not necessarily even needing to uproot his family, is he? Do we even know? I mean,
no, I think he's just going to get a condo by Wrigley Field.
He's just going to have he's just going to put a cot in the office.
A stabbing cabin in Lakeview.
Stabbing cabin in Lakeview, yeah.
Hey, Mike, maybe you've got your other place there, Buena Park. Sublet it to
I'm an Airbnb. In fact, I got to talk to it in about an hour. So yeah, let's hurry this up.
There we go.
So I don't know. It's a weird thing to talk about, but in that situation, I mean, we've talked about it before. Like if you're a Cubs fan that actually lives, say, like in Waukegan or whatever, like considering, how unmodern Wrigley Field is and the parking situation, like it's actually literally easier to go to Brewers games at some point, even in Illinois. So I don't know where he lives, but I do, the money obviously makes a huge difference, but especially when he doesn't maybe have to move them halfway across the country.
Well, in 2001 and 2002, I had Brewers season tickets because it's super easy to get there from here.
Yeah.
We just picked a package with most Cub games, and then we would just go up we had a 20 game package with a parking pass, and I paid $300.
Wow!
What year?
Good deal.
2001, 2002. Tickets were $10
first
a game.
Year.
And then I split the parking pass. It was amazing.
That's nice.
And I had to watch surrounded by. Well, and I was going to say I was surrounded by Brewer fans. I wasn't surrounded. We weren't surrounded by anybody. We can sit wherever the fuck we wanted. I mean, there was a sellout for opening day. President Bush was there. Sean Casey hit a home run. Sean Casey hit the first home run at Miller Park and at PNC Park within days of each other.
Oh wow!
And then for the rest of the time, we could pick our seat. We could do whatever we wanted. It was pretty good. We went to that's how I got my All-Star tickets in 2002, so I could watch the tie. And
watch Bud Selig shrug or whatever.
Oh, we could see it. Right. We saw that whole thing unfolding. We're like, my friend Charlie and I were looking at the scoreboard, and we're like, both teams are basically out of pitchers. And then you could literally see Bud behind home plate doing the with his arms in the air. Like, now what do we do? And I'm like, oh man, I said they're just gonna have to quit. And Charlie's like, oh bullshit. I'm like, no. I said, you watch. And they made the announcement that if nobody scored in that inning, the game was over, that it would be a tie, and everybody booed.
Did you get to go to the Derby that year too?
Yeah.
Or
went to the Futures game. Hesop Choi hit a home run in the Futures game.
Nice.
Yeah, the Derby was amazing. It was the finals. I think were Bonds and Giambi, and we were in right field, and we're like, oh, we're gonna get all. We were way back in right field. They hit everything over our head. We didn't have a chance to catch anything. But for the first part of the Derby, the big doors, the garage doors, the back of the airplane hangar, or the big barn they've got up there, were open, and Sammy was hitting balls bouncing them off the concourse into the parking lot.
Out of the stadium.
Absolute bombs.
Well, this is 02. I feel like if you were to really analyze, it's probably like peak.
Yes. Oh, it's the height of the steroid era. Everybody
juiced era.
Right.
And that was the first year.
What a
Bonds
show.
Was juiced up, right? Or at least the second. He was huge.
Yeah.
So he was
01. He started.
Well, 73. He had 01 he had 73 and 01.
Okay. So yeah, he was all Balcoed up. He was ready to go.
That
he had the cream and the clear. He was ready.
incredibly entertaining.
But ironically, the most impressive thing we saw was Vladimir Guerrero wasn't in the Derby, but in batting practice. I don't know if you picture Miller Park and in left field, the old TGI Fridays out there, and now it's some other restaurant. Vlad was hitting line drives that were hitting the windows on the way up. Just line drive after line drive. It's batting practice. People are only half paying attention, and all of a sudden it got like weirdly quiet in there, and everybody's just like staring at the balls just smashing off the window, and then everybody went nuts. It was pretty cool. And then it's funny, we talk about this with shit all the time. I remember this crap. I distinctly remember watching Edgar Martinez take batting practice and watching him just progressively hit balls, one to the right of it, all the way around the field. He wasn't an all-star in 2002. He wasn't there.
You just there to put on a clinic?
No, he wasn't there. I didn't see it there.
I
saw it at a Sox game. But in my mind,
wait, I thought you had said that about Ichiro. Maybe you're getting your Mariners confused.
Well, this was Edgar. I saw Edgar.
Okay.
Edgar is such a precise.
Ichiro used to do it, but I saw Edgar do it in person.
Hitter.
But I didn't see him do it at Miller Park like I thought I did.
Misremember this crap, to be called.
Misremember this crap.
There's a lot of that. Half remember this crap is shit.
It's like 50% misremembering.
Yeah. Well, Dave, what are your thoughts on the state of free agency? I mean, not just with the Cubs, but there was all this talk. Obviously, the Dodgers have made the big signings. A lot of fans are complaining. Oh, it's
I'm a little bored, like everyone else, but at the same time, I don't know if there should be anything done about it. Like, should we have a transfer window or a countdown or that kind of stuff? Just because I think that puts pressure on the players to make a decision, and that'll keep the salaries down. And I'm a big pro-union, get the money away from the owners kind of guy. So I don't know that that would make it any better. I just think we need to kind of be a little patient with what's going on. It is kind of surprising, and it makes me wonder, I don't have any, speaking of like defaming people, I don't know if there's like collusion going on, but I've wondered that before in other off seasons where things have been slow. And obviously to a degree, I mean, they're handing out, absolutely huge contracts to some players. But as people sort of predicted, the middle guys kind of get squeezed a little bit, and we got to wait and see. So I think I understand why people are kind of antsy for it to pick up again, but I'm just it will. I mean, I'm not sure when. That's all.
Well, didn't the Padres? Didn't they signed He Sucks Too yesterday? Didn't they?
That's not his name.
That's not his name. I thought that was his name. I would have signed. If there's a guy out there named He Sucks Too, I will sign him. I would want that guy in my bullpen.
I'm sure he's good.
Think of the shirts or the
old
sell.
the old Cubs joke about win one soon. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he was on the 2012 Cubs. I remember I had to write about him for The Athletic.
Yes.
Well, the Padres are, making news, or they did, for needing to borrow money to make payroll late in the season, but they're still spending a minimal amount of money. It's not, I think, I can't remember the guy's actual name, and I don't want to call him He Sucks Too. But it's like $2 million a year or something like that.
Suck is his middle name, and we know that. Because I immediately went, I love that name. It's great.
So it's not a huge amount of money.
Go Suck You. That is his
name? That's not it either. But and I don't even remember my point anymore. Oh yeah, it's. I mean, there are people signing. It's just that he isn't. He's a funny name and a fun name, but just it's not a lot of money. Whatever he's getting, $2 or $3 million.
Padres are in a little bit of a weird position because didn't their owner just die this past offseason?
That too.
And so there's no one really knows what their financial situation is.
Yeah, it depends on. I mean, they're not nameless, but they're less known than their motives are less known than what they had going before. AJ Preller is always. There's a guy I'm surprised in a way he's still got a job. I mean, I thought a couple times they were going to come get him, but so he's still interested in making moves, but there is some kind of. I mean, they're not spending like they did before. The owner before was very altruistic, and let's get a World Series for the Padres and their fans. And these people who run the team now are probably a little more looking at the bottom line than that.
I mean, I would think Cub fans obviously we're irritated. We want them to do something, but people won't really freak out until Cody Bellinger signs somewhere else.
Right.
If that happens, all shit will hit the fan everywhere.
Right.
Which is why
Especially
if he
if he gets
signs
the-
somewhere else, I want him to sign somewhere else on the Friday night at Cub Convention.
Oh God! Right in the middle of Tom Ricketts giving his little speech too. That'd be
In
great.
the middle of Ryan Dempster's fake talk show. That's what I want it to happen.
God!
And I want him to sign with the Cardinals during the Cub Convention. It'd be great.
If it were to happen, I can't agree more. That's how it was to happen. If it were to happen.
It is funny, we were kind of joking today on the Twitters about, what panicked move will the Cubs make before next? It's next Friday. It's a week from. No, yeah, it's a week from Friday, right?
Yep.
8 days.
2 weeks. It's Martin Luther King. It's a weekend before Martin Luther King, so it's a week from Friday. What panic move will they make so they have some news?
Yeah, and also, by the way, the balance of season ticket holder payments are due like on the 16th or 17th. So it's
Is that right?
Yes. So they have a couple things motivating them to do something.
Andy, was there ever? I think I've asked you this before, but was there? Thinking back to the Bellinger negotiations when they first brought him in, was there ever a possibility that they could have avoided this, at least for this year, and signed him to a longer deal? Was that ever possible?
I mean, I've made that point that the Cubs had far more leverage than they used last year. And people are like, no, he wouldn't have done it. They wouldn't have signed. I get all this stuff immediately. So Boris wouldn't do that. It's like, where else was he going last year? I mean, the market for him was not good. And the Cubs really had like everything going for them. They had a wide open center field, so he knew he was going to play every day, no matter how bad he sucked. They had his old hitting coaches from the Dodgers. They had a park that's good to hit in. He wants very much to work out at whatever team's facility all winter. So this talk about him going to the Blue Jays, he doesn't want to train in Florida. He wants to train in Arizona, like really bad. I guarantee you the reason the Cubs didn't sign him for 2 years was because they didn't think they weren't confident enough they were going to make it work. They didn't want to get stuck with him for a second year. And then he goes out and he has, he's a borderline MVP season, and they're like, oh shit, maybe we should have got him for 2 years. Oops. I think they could have. I think they didn't push for it, and then Boris was like, well, fine, we'll get him guaranteed money, and hopefully he has a better year, and it worked. I still think that I think he wants to come back, but he's not going to. But he's not going to do it. And Boris certainly isn't going to do the hometown discount crap. The Cubs might be able to get him for a little bit less than another team, but not a significant amount less than another team. And I think the way this is going to end, I still think they're going to end up with it because frankly they're running out of options for anything else.
Yeah.
They're going to have to hold their nose and go an extra year or so more than they want. And Boris is going to have to go, all right, fine. If you really want to do this, do it. I think that's how it ends up with him coming back to the Cubs. If he doesn't come back, I don't know what they do, because the team they won 83 games last year, didn't make the playoffs, or 82, didn't make the playoffs. The team they have right now is significantly worse than that. They need him just to get back close to par with last year. It's not great. The one saving grace, I still think they could do this. I think the Cubs could call up my Uncle Larry and Uncle Paul with the Guardians and say, look, you guys can't make payroll because you're not getting your TV money. So take some of our vaunted minor leaguers, and we want Jose Ramirez and Emmanuel Clase and Justin Bieber's brother. One-stop shopping for 3 of your needs right there. Then go add another bat and show up at spring training and see if you can win the mighty Central.
I think you might be able to get Class A and Class B and maybe Bibe, but I don't know if you're going to get Jose Ramirez. I think he's kind of locked up for some not crazy money.
Cheap. I looked it up. He doesn't make enough. They only owe him like $88 million for the next 5 years. I mean, that's a sweet deal. But they're cheap as hell. So
they are.
I mean, if somebody tempts you with Nick Madrigal, How can you say no?
Right.
They are cheap as hell, but the thing that kind of scares me about Cleveland is they are one of the few organizations that when they let a guy go, he doesn't normally stay all that great much longer than that. I mean, you look at Corey Kluber.
Yeah, but you know who the key to that was. You know who the big brain over there was in those days. It was Carter Hawkins. And the Cubs have him
Carter
now.
Hawkins, yes.
The Guardians they're pissing in the dark over there. They don't know what's going on without Carter around to steady the ship.
Look at the big brain on Carter.
Yeah,
he certainly has a big head. Hopefully there's a big brain rattling around in there. I don't think so. All right, so anything other than David Ross that strikes you as like, holy shit, I can't believe that happened last year?
Yeah, I forgot the original question. That was it. What was the biggest surprise? I don't have an answer yet.
Yeah, there's going to be one big ass, but like I don't know if anything on the Bears surprised us. I know we don't really go too deep on the Bulls, but I think anyone following them might be surprised that one of the better players' absence seemed to trigger a lot of success, which seems counterintuitive. That I don't follow hoops like I used to, but it seems to me that Zach LaVine was an above average ball player that somehow the Bulls played better without him. Is that still true, by the way? Is
they're beating. This is their last game without him, and they're beating the shit out of the Knicks on ABC. How about that?
Oh,
it's on ABC,
real live network TV on a Wednesday
on a school night. Wow.
Kids might not be back in school yet because New Year's was on a Monday.
The figure of speech, no, but wow, that's pretty wild. It is kind of holiday-ish feeling, but still,
it's not. It's kind of surprising. And it's not like Zach is one of those guys who's just good enough to get you beat. Like, he's real flashy. I don't want to make a comparison.
I know where you're going.
I immediately thought he's kind of like Justin Fields, but it's not because. But
I thought you were going to say Ian Happ.
Ian, he's only flashy because in order to slow down, he has to slide under every fly ball. He has to.
Like a 6'2" softball player, so he can make sure he cradles it.
But Zach does a lot of cool shit. I mean, he's super athletic. Even after his knee surgeries, he's an amazing dunker, and he's got incredible range. But he also, the ball sticks with him. He doesn't move it. What's really frustrating about him is he's a terrible defensive player, but he tries. You would forgive him more if he didn't give a shit. You'd be like, God, if that guy could ever just get motivated. They motivated him, and he's just terrible. He always ends up in the wrong spot, or he always overcommits. And so they took him out of that, and they realized, hey, the rest of this actually kind of fits together. And then, ironically, they struggled a little bit, and they seem to have come out of it tonight. When Nikola Vucevic got hurt, somebody had a stat about now they keep kind of a hockey assist stat. And without Vuk in there, their second pass assists went way down because he was kind of a key guy to keep the ball moving and get easy shots. And when he got hurt, that kind of stopped. The Bulls will inevitably trade him, but them playing well without him and his enormous salary are two things that make the likelihood of a big return pretty much nil. So.
I mean, in terms of other surprises, a few other surprises. First of all, Keenan Tillman is in the FBI, evidently. The whole Alan Williams thing, that was we kind of, there's been so much else going on. And we don't cover this team for good reason, but the team on the South Side, losing Rick and Kenny, that was kind of a surprise if there was anybody who cared about talking about that.
But Kenny for sure, right? That was that's their equivalent of Ross. Actually, more than Ross, because he was basically Jerry's other son.
He's like emeritus.
Pax. It was like firing John Paxson, which Pax had to fire himself.
They did that too.
Well, no, Pax quit basically. Jerry was a good.
Is that right?
Yeah. Jerry doesn't give a shit enough about the Bulls to actually fire. John had to go in and go, I'm going to fire myself, and Jerry's like, are you still going to pay yourself? He's like, no. Okay, then fine. Go. That's good. And the Al Williams thing, though, obviously it was bad. I mean, he got ushered out. But that's like one of the most surreal days ever, because there was all this like news about the FBI. The FBI is at Allen's house. The FBI is at Hallis Hall. Peanut Tillman is arresting Alan Williams. Peanut is making Eberflus cry. And all that stuff was bullshit. The FBI didn't go to Hallis Hall. The FBI didn't go to Alan Williams' house. He did get fired, and he got ushered out of the building. But all that other stuff, some dude on Twitter was making it up, and other reporters were like, "Oh, look at this," and they were just retweeting stuff. So it was bad.
Peanut is not in the FBI?
Peanut went through FBI. He's like gone through the FBI training course. I think he was training for. Didn't he do the Mackinac Island thing? Didn't he paddle out there? I think he did.
I don't know.
The actual
Pretty
island?
sure he did. He did the race from wherever you go up to the island.
I just remember that Herschel Walker was going to be in the FBI, and I think of that in those terms. Like Herschel Walker just told him he's going to do 50,000 sit-ups, and then he's going to be in the FBI because he could do that. And I thought maybe there was some kind of physical feat that Peanut was going to do.
Wasn't Elvis a DEA agent for Nixon or something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that,
yeah. All kinds of fun stuff. Yeah, I mean, we talked about a little bit. The Cubs season was really weird. Like they got off to the good start, and we're like, hey, they're pretty good. And then they were terrible, like just absolutely terrible, to the point where like, wow, we don't have to worry about this. Then they were pretty good again, and then they somehow at the end managed to get terrible again. It was like 4 seasons all in one. I mean, and then there were weird things that would like spur them into like Trey Mancini crapping all over himself in England. Started a tailspin that they couldn't get out of.
That killed a nice run they'd been on and sent them in the other direction. It felt like.
Sent Marcus Stroman into a tailspin too. If you look at his numbers since,
you're right.
Like after that game,
I always felt like there was a story there that didn't get reported. Remember, he bought Nintendo Twitches for all the guys for the flight.
Oh yeah, for the plane ride.
And then he came up with like this phantom like injury. It was almost like was it Joel Zumaya? Didn't he go on the injured list with Nintendo?
Hero, I believe.
And Carlos Zambrano used to do that too. He had a gaming computer, and he would screw up his forearm because he would be playing video games too much, and he'd have to skip a start once in a while because he had inflamed tendon in his arm for playing video games. And I always wondered, it's like, are we sure that Marcus didn't video game himself to the injured list? Because the timing was like, I was like, well, we know what he was doing for however long that flight to London is, and then all of a sudden he comes out of the start early, and he was awful from that point on.
Didn't he walk into the press box during a game or something too? Did that happen? Didn't Marcus Stroman do that?
Kent Merker?
What are you saying?
Not like that.
He left. He went up to the press box.
I thought, yeah, didn't. For some reason, I remember that. Yeah, I have to look it up. Did he? He did not do that. Dave, you've never had any player come visiting you during a press box during the game, have you?
Not me.
Anybody in uniform?
Not you personally.
Sit next to you in the press box.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Stroman did go up to the press box. There is a story about that.
Yep. To discuss his rib injury in mid-August.
Yeah, right. So
is that what it was?
Yeah. He was out at the time, I think. I don't think it was.
That
is not unusual. You'll see players.
He went and found Sahadev. Talk to him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course.
No, I mean, that's the article I see that I pulled out.
He's like, Sahadev, would you like to write a 14,000-word story about me throwing bullpens barefoot?
Sure.
I mean, we know whatever. I feel bad for Sahadev with Craig Breslow gone. Who's gonna feed him all the pitching infrastructure bullshit that he would write reams about? And I would flirt with going on the injured list by rolling my eyes back in my head while I was trying to read it. Thank God. I wait for the Red Sox. That pitching is going to be amazing now that they have Craig Breslow, because that guy, there's a guy.
Shows you how closely I paid attention. I was not even aware.
He's their Cubs director of pitching.
I didn't know that he'd moved on.
Oh yeah, he's the phony, but whatever the general manager title is now in Boston. He's got. He's going to fix Lucas Giolito, so they'll be fine.
Well, that was a big signing. We're talking about no activity going on.
Yeah.
1-year deal for Lucas Giolito.
And then they traded Chris Sale like 45 minutes later.
Yeah.
And they're paying a huge amount of his salary.
$17 million or something like that.
Yep.
And then the Red Sox or the Braves are deferring a bunch of it till like 2035 or something. The rest of it.
You can't do
He's
that.
going to make
They're
less
allowed
than
to
the
do
league
that?
minimum this year from the Braves because he's getting, he's obviously getting money from the Red Sox.
On a contract that wasn't originally theirs, they're allowed to do that?
Well, I guess you inherit the contract, then you can restructure it if you want. Or maybe the way it had to work was the Red Sox had to defer it, but then they assumed it. But they
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the rules are on this.
But that'll be good. They can they'll get a good 3 or 4 starts out of Chris. And a lot of quality time in the tub, rehabbing, whatever. I hope they don't have a throwback jersey night because it's expensive to have to replace all those.
Yeah.
They do have a good one from the 70s, but it's not as pajama-y as the White Sox one that Sale hated. So I don't know if he's going to be
It is funny, though. He would have looked ridiculous in that. Absolutely. You kind of see why he did it. I mean, he's a scarecrow anyway.
Right.
And you put that weird pajama top thing on. It probably would have slipped. I don't think he could have kept it on. He would have gone right through the neck hole while he was pitching. It's like, oh, hey, he's naked again. Damn it. Time out.
The arm slot would have made more sense for his neck. You're right.
And he's so light that it would basically, they have to call timeout. Like, no, you're distracting the hitter. You got to put your shirt back on, Chris. It's not fair. Well, there's that.
Yeah. I guess for my surprise, it's, I don't know how much of a surprise you'd consider this, but Justin Steele's emergence as, the ace of the staff and becoming a legit Cy Young contender. I didn't have that on my board in the beginning of the year.
Well, like the firing of David Ross in the pleasant surprise category, too, for that matter.
Right.
That was a nice thing to see.
I mean, I did attend the game on Labor Day of this year against the Giants. It was him and Logan Webb matched up, and Logan Webb was another guy who was in the Cy Young conversation. I think he might have finished a little lower than Justin, but I thought at the end of that game, he pitched like either 8 or a complete game shutout. I thought at the end of that, he was like the leading horse for the Cy Young, and then his last few starts in September, not all that great.
Yeah, he did sort of tail off, I remember. Are we bullish on Steele next year, or is there a little bit of a regression, or what's the hunch?
I feel like, after the workload he had this year that, he's been stretched out enough to the point where it's something that he can sustain. I mean, he's not a crazy big strikeout guy. He averaged just over a strikeout an inning last year. The nice thing with him is that, he has arguably the best middle infield and defensive middle infield in baseball behind him, too.
The thing I liked about him was, for all the vaunted pitching infrastructure stuff, apparently the thing that turned him around was early in the season. He got a phone call from John Lester. Lester watched one of his starts, and John's like, you pitch basically like me. Why don't you just do this? And he gave him a tweak over the phone. Because he only throws 2 pitches. And whatever it was, it immediately worked. So it just cracked me up that for all the money they spent on it, one of their former players just called a guy up and completely turned his season around. I'm sure if I were Johnny, I would have sent an invoice to the Cubs, which I'm sure they would have lost immediately under a desk somewhere. Whoops. I thought I saw that. We'll look for it, John. Don't worry about it.
I saw a headline. I did not get a chance to read it, but just because of, I guess, all the tumultuous storylines, the Daily Herald asked, was this the worst season in Chicago sports history? And I don't know how they went about trying to prove that, but it didn't seem that bad to me. I mean, there's lots of weird little stories and disappointments, But at the same time, I mean, I can remember when everybody was terrible and nothing happened, like in terms of newsworthy things, and it seemed like there was no hope whatsoever. I don't get that same feeling about the state of Chicago sports in general.
I mean, just on the surface, the Blackhawks got Connor Bedard this year. The Bears now have two. They got 2 number 1 picks in 2023.
Yeah.
In one calendar year. The Bulls made the play-in tournament and actually won a game. How prestigious is that? The Cubs, for the second straight year, had the 5th best record in the second half in the National League. Can't dismiss that. And the Bears, Bears won 7. The Bears won, probably just. The Bears won 7 games this year. Then 2023 in that calendar year. They've done a lot worse than that.
Cubs over 500. The Bears on the rise. The Bulls squeak in the play. It's a lot of mediocrity, but I mean, I'm gonna 80. I feel like 1982. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to align them all. We've talked before that there's like 1997. Now, granted, there's a Bulls championship in there, but it was also the year that the Cubs went 0-14, the Bears went 0-7, and the Blackhawks didn't get they went like winless in their first 12 games, and the Sox traded the white flag trade, but then that's offset by the Bulls in the midst of the greatest dynasty ever. So I don't know if you measure it up like through all the quantity, it's a lot of mediocrity that we went through this year, but off the top of my head, without taking a deep dive, it does not feel like the most miserable year for all 4 Chicago sports or 5 Chicago sports teams.
I feel like from the mid 70s to the late 70s, all those years were worse.
I mean, a little bit before my time, but I mean, I just say 70, 78, Cubs, Bears. No, nobody does anything. The Bears are, 6 and 8 or whatever. I mean, Artis Gilmore hadn't come to the Bulls yet, but it was after Norm Van Leer. You could find some pockets that were worse than this. So I wouldn't. I would just instinctively, without even deeply examining it, throw this year out. Yeah, mediocre. It's more in common with 70% of the seasons. I feel like.
I think it was 99 was the last year every team in Chicago all missed the playoffs.
Ooh, good one. Okay, so that's Geron's first year. The Bears were at a pretty historic low. The Cubs in '99 was finally the end of Jim Riggleman. They were bad. Sox were. I mean, the Sox were a year away from winning the division, but
at least in the case of the Bulls and the Cubs, you had a little bit of a glow from the season prior.
The Bulls, that was Cornell David and Delabor, Bagarich, and oh my God.
And I know the Hawks didn't make the playoffs. You said none of them made it. So, right there, 99 is a worse season than this because there was bleak. There was no hope. There was not anything to look for. Other than the mouse fart that was Dick Geron being slightly better than Dave Wanstead. There really wasn't a whole lot to look forward to, I feel like, for most of the teams.
But then again, were the feelings at that point going into that Bears season, were they looking a little bit more positive?
Yes, because we had Gary Crowton and the newfangled offense.
From the botched coaching hire of Dave McGinnis, though, were there?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. That's how 1999 started. One of the most incompetent coaching hires across any of the sports. So it was hard to get rallied around that team because I remember looking at Geron. I was so disgusted with the whole McCaskey ineptitude and incompetence. I'm looking at Geron going, God, why did you have to take this job? You moron. You're that desperate because why couldn't you just drag this on and humiliate this dumbass family even more? But then eventually we got a little optimistic by the fall.
I remember when we talked about this on Remember This Crap, and I thought about it later. Dave McGinnis didn't play that right at all.
No.
When you're driving to the airport and you hear an announcement that you're the new coach of the team and you haven't accepted the job yet, you have the Bears by the balls so much. You don't tell them no. You double what they offered you.
Right.
And you're like, you assholes, do you want to go tell the media that I'm not your coach?
Good call.
It's like,
red ass, maybe.
And then if the idea is, he knew he'd get a better job, he coached the fucking Cardinals. He actually worked for the Bidwells, who are worse than the McCaskies.
It was only after he outlasted Vince Tobin. That was hardly any kind of a, better move for him.
Yeah.
I mean, he did get to finally coach, but you're right. I didn't think
he
about
should-
that. That's a
he
great
should've got-
call because we all remember that day. He was all red ass, like leaving there. And
Think of what
jumping in
Michael
the
would
parking
have
lot.
done to avoid that getting out. He would have paid you.
Yeah.
He would have paid you out of his own pocket. Not a lot.
It's gonna be embarrassing. Yeah.
Well, no,
He'd have
because
given
he
you
knew he
George's
was-
Camry. You want to
because
here? Throw it in the Camry.
I don't know.
too.
I don't know if Michael McCaskey knew that his dear old mother would fire him for that, but turns out she would. So yeah,
Yeah, no,
Because he
McGinnis should have Ghostbustered that thing. Dave, if someone asks you if you're the Bears coach, you say yes.
Yeah, it's you don't get all indignant and like, well, I can't. Obviously, I can't. And he's a good old boy too. I mean, you would have thought he would have done none of that. It's kind of.
Yeah.
I always liked Dave. He seemed like a good guy, but it's a little foghorn leghorn.
Yeah.
I say I can't work for that team. Like, no, you can't.
Yeah.
You're going to be a head coach in the NFL. You're going to coach somewhere for 3 years and get canned. So just make as much money as you possibly can. Those rubes have to pay you now. They screwed themselves. Take advantage of it. His agent should have got fired for that.
Mm-hmm.
He probably didn't have an agent.
Yeah, that would fit. The Bears didn't have a general manager.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was going to be my joke about the Bears fucking up they would have fucked up the Terry Bradshaw thing anyway. I was like, well, who's the GM there?
Well, that was the other thing that led to that whole snafu is that when they finally hired Wannstedt, they were like, I remember reporters at the time would go on the score and like talk about it after the fact that like McCaskey stood up there and he's like, well, Mark Hatley will be in charge of the coach. And like Hatley was like visibly surprised because he was not general manager. He was a player of pro personnel because of their cockamamie decision after they got rid of Jerry Venisi in '86 to operate without a general manager for 14 years so they could save a few bucks or whatever. But then they still kind of squeezed Mark Hatley into that role. So it's no wonder that whole fucking hiring was a debacle, from the beginning.
I mean, were they that inept just because the old man just did everything? And when he died, they had no structure and they didn't have anybody there who knew how to create a structure? It had to be, right?
Well, it had to be coupled with the fact that Muggs died early too. And
no, but Muggs was a failed son. That's the thing. Like that's a little bit revisionist.
Was he not learning under the wings of Old Man Hallis at all?
No, he was a puppeteer. The old man just was insistent on running the show.
Well, see, that would be very Mark Davis like. Because even though he was going to inherit the team, Al never fucking told him anything. He didn't want to waste his time explaining shit to Mark. Mark was just the dope who ate at P.F. Chang's all the time and drove a minivan and got the world's worst haircut. And Al didn't give a shit. So when Al died, and they weren't doing great under the last years of Al, Mark didn't know what the fuck to do, and he still doesn't. And the Raiders have we're talking about we make fun of the Lions. The Raiders have had one winning season in the last 20 years or something. It's been embarrassing futility, and a lot of that is because Mark doesn't know what to do, and he's not bright enough to just hire somebody and get out of the way. He feels like he's Al Davis's kid. He's got to run things, even though he doesn't know how to do it.
Yeah,
but just wait till Vag dies and George is drunk with power, then he really takes over.
No, my theory was that the old man, the grandpa, was so uniquely elite that he just sucked up all the DNA, all the positive DNA. Because, I thought Muggs is a failed son. Virginia, she marries the guy that was basically her dad's limo driver, and then he produces a bunch of kids. And go figure, out of 12 kids, not a single one of them can seem to possess any of Grandpa's whatever.
Well, and George didn't like it, right?
That's what I mean. Yeah, he's
he married a fucking loud
George
singer.
was just a force of personality. He was a football guy and running this thing, so he probably wasn't the greatest husband, father, or whatever. He was just and so I could if you look at the history, it wasn't like Muggs was anything special. I just it's just we're cursed with all the leftovers.
It is funny though. I watched. I just finished watching the final season of The Crown, and the last 2 seasons where you've got old Queen Elizabeth. every time I watch it, she's Virginia Hallis McCaskey. Every time I watch it. And so I feel like, Dominic West is way too suave to be Prince Charles, but he's way, way too suave to be George. But I'm like watching it, like casting like the Bears family as, But that's what I'm going to do. I signed a deal with Netflix. I'm going to make, I'm going to make a Crown style show about the Bears. It's going to start with the old man dying. And then
I like it.
It's going to be nice.
Jonathan Price will play George Hallis dying, basically. Is that?
Oh, good call.
Yeah. All right. So one of us has to go here in a few minutes. So it's time to make our. Does anybody have any fearless predictions for 2024?
I'll go first. Just staying consistent with my 40-year anniversary parallel of the Bears going out on a non-playoff season on a high note by knocking out the Packers. The 2024 Bears will play the NFC Conference title game.
Woo!
Wow!
I like
the
that.
84, just like the 84 Bears.
I like that.
All right, mine is going to be that the Craig Counsell-led Cubs make the playoffs. And then, like pretty much all of the Craig Counsell teams, don't win a playoff game.
And lose to the eventual NL pennant.
That's right. Whoever they draw, you're a shoo-in. You're going to the World Series. Congratulations. You've beaten Craig Counsell. You get to go to the World Series.
Man. One of you guys got one. Go ahead. I haven't really thought of one.
I predict that whatever the Bears do, it will be the wrong thing.
Yeah, that's not a fearless prediction. That's chalk.
That's really chilling, though, because you guys broke it down. There are three things that they can do. They can take the top pick and do whatever. They could trade field, there's so many situations where they can still go wrong. Like they take the top pick and it's a bust. They trade Fields also, and he takes another team to the Super Bowl while their guy sucks. They're in any scenario, things can go right, things can go wrong. Dave's prediction chills me because it feels like no matter what they do, it's going to be the wrong one.
Right. That was my whole.
You guys just had an entire conversation about how they're. I don't want to say they're all inbred, whatever. It's like the British family, but there's no hope in the front office whatsoever. Let's put it like that.
I feel like now that Kevin Warren is there in spite of Ted Phillips, that maybe in spite of everything else,
if they let him or don't get in the way.
This is what it's like being a Bears fan, that you win in spite of these other factors, not because of anything.
I think Kevin is basically there to build a stadium, and he's doing a hell of a job so far.
I live 4 miles from Euclid 53. You're right. It doesn't look any different.
Yeah.
I'm about 10 miles away right now.
And I think the benefit of having him there is George is another level removed from any actual football input.
And the guy in between him is not Ted.
It's not Ted.
So in case there is a football decision, I think we feel better about Kevin than Ted.
Yeah, he's not spending 8.5 hours calling up the park district and bitching about they want 32% of the parking revenue instead of 28% of the parking revenue.
And imagine if they did fire Eberflus. It's like, okay, call Ernie Corsi. He's dead. Call Bill Foley. He's dead. Who's the next guy that we have to connect with our general manager to make a decision?
I mean,
Did Ernie Corsi die?
No. And even if he does, his hairpiece will live forever. You could just use that. That could be the you just stick his hairpiece. Remember the Dick Van Dyke Show, where Mary accidentally outs Alan Brady as being bald, wearing a toupee, and he's got all the little mannequin heads with all his different toupees. He's like, one's kind of shaggy. He's like, here's the hey Al, looks like you need a haircut toupee, and then here's hey Al, you look like you're starting to lose your hair toupee, and he had all the different versions of it. They'll just have one of those mannequin heads with Ernie's hairpiece on it, and they'll just consult it. It'll be okay. George, we'll ask you a question. You ask the hairpiece. When the hairpiece answers, let us know. And there's George locked in a room with the toupee while the adults try to hire a coach.
Mike, this isn't sports, but are you going to have to go back on strike because of AI?
Probably. My guess would be, our next contract's up in 2.5 years, and I think that'd be a bold prediction. I think we don't have to get into that, but I think we left the lines too early. I think we're too.
I didn't mean to be on the spot for that. I've been wondering.
No, but you coaxed a prediction out of it.
Yeah, well, I'll give a sports related prediction. This is just to irritate Andy.
All right, good.
That
Ian Happ's going to win the MVP. Is that your prediction?
No, it's not that bad.
Oh no,
not that bad. If the Packers game will have an outsized influence on the Bears' future. If the Bears beat the Packers, all three of Flus, Justin, and Getsy will be back, and if they lose, one or more will be gone. And the details of that story will come out in the weeks following. That we'll learn how much
they lose.
Yeah, they will learn how. Right. Well, no, either way, they will learn how much that game had an impact on.
Okay.
There's my prediction.
Yeah, the reason I got irritated when we talked about that the other night is just that it does. George's weird obsession with the Packers does worry me.
Yeah,
like they don't have like a normal like. I mean, fans, we hate the Packers and blah blah blah. We can get on with our lives after we bitch about it for a little while. Where George, his priorities are all wrong. Like, yes, we want to beat the Packers, but it's far more important to actually like the team continue to improve. But I don't know that it's that way to George. He's just odd duck.
Mm-hmm.
I'll grant it. Like, ordinarily, that would be such a stupid and obviously you're not even saying that it's something that should happen. You're saying that because George would be such a emotionally driven meatball that could factor into it, which is again very chilling. It's a very depressing predictions here.
We could get a clue as to how threatened by the Bears' resurgence the Packers are if, when the Bears show up on Sunday, we get in their locker room. If there's a load of horse manure in the locker room, that was a Vince Lombardi special, right? Where they dump the manure in the Bears locker room. Did you hear that story?
I never heard that about him. No, I never heard that.
Yeah, the companion story to that was one of my favorites, and this is back when the days when the Bears were, could actually beat the Packers. Paul Hornig told the story about the Packers are in their locker room and Lombardi's going up and down. He's getting ready to give his big speech. And there's a knock on the locker room door. And they kind of stand around and they go back to the thing and they hear a knock on the door. So they go over and they open it. And they open the door and there's Hallis standing in the doorway. And he's like, Coach, can I help you with something? And Hallis is like, yeah, Vince, I just want to make sure that you get your team ready because we're going to kick your ass. And he turned and walked out. I want the Flus to do that on Sunday. Knock on Matt LaFleur's door. And I hope you're ready because we're going to kick your ass.
I thought you said you were going to say the Packers were going to pull a Hayden Fry and paint the locker room pink.
Right. Nice. Or when Flus does it, the guy's like, sir, this is the boiler room.
Now,
the janitor's closet.
Ian Happ could have played for John Malkovich. The reason behind that was the Illinois that year, they had some specialist came in to psychologist, and
1990
they had this color, this pale blue that they would post on when they had their locker room and Champaign painted that color, and it was like a calming thing. It was kind of like a meditation. They were before the game. They were supposed to observe the blue, and then apparently they had these posters they would take on the road. And so when Hayden heard that, that's why he painted the locker room pink, so that they couldn't do their stupid little visualization. It's basically the football equivalent of the stupid dots in Ian Happ's helmet that he has to stare at before every at bat. And then the thing about those dots is Marquis wanted poor little Taylor. First it's like, Ian, can I interview your dad? He's like, no, he's not here. And she said, ooh, can we show the dots? And he wouldn't let her. He was not allowed. She was not allowed. They couldn't take a shot of the dots. Apparently it's proprietary. You can't stare at Ian Happ's focus dots in his helmet.
Boy, that would have been great television too. Typical.
Yes,
sure.
Oh, they could have turned that. They would have had to go into her 5 times during the game for updates on the dots.
Let's take a look at the dots now.
Think how sad all the dads in attendance would have been.
Yes.
When they do that Players Weekend thing where they get to wear the special shoes, Boog could have the dots on his Nikes.
Oh, very good. Very excited about that.
All right. Did we all make our Praz? Did you make your fearless prediction?
Last one.
I'll throw one out there, and I'll represent my demographic as the young guy here.
Ouch.
Will it be? Is it the convention in which the Cubs Hall of Fame will be voted on?
Yes, they will announce. They will announce the next inductees into the Utility Tunnel of Fame.
Okay. Sammy gets in.
Oh,
okay.
There we go.
And he's going to make an appearance at Wrigley Field this year.
He may have to
Will
play.
he make it a?
They may need to give Sammy at bats at this point.
Yes.
That's a good prediction. I like that.
I mean, it's if they don't do it, it's
this year,
because this is like when I had Greenberg on the pod last time. We talked about like they're to that point now. They did the Dunston and Grace, and the next year they're supposedly going chronologically, because I predicted it was going to be Derek Lee and Ramos Ramirez, and he said no. That would have meant they would have jumped ahead too far. Like, this should be Kerry Wood and Sammy Sosa. That's who should get announced next weekend.
Right.
And it's very likely to be Kerry Wood and Mickey Morandini.
Oh, of course. Brought back posthumous. Is there still an empty statue base? Okay.
Yeah, now they're not going to announce a statue because we get to see the Sandberg statue this year. Last year they announced us getting it.
Yeah.
And hopefully at the convention they're going to unveil what it's going to look like. Because I think they did that with Fergie. I think the second one you got to see like the artist rendering of what the statue was going to be. And we've talked about the fact that those statues, whoever they hire, he's really good. Like those are really good statues. Except for the guy who does them now didn't do Harry being pulled in the bowels of hell by fans.
The Harry from all the screaming, anguished fans from
bad.
the gate, that 8th circle of hell.
But I mean, I have a picture in my mind. In my mind's eye, I have the Sandberg statue. I mean, it's him at the podium with Cindy and her
corncob dress.
He's looking over
with David Martinez on the back.
I see him. Yeah. He's got like his right foot in the air and his left foot is just off the bag, and he's making the pivot. And he's throwing to first, and he's got the flip down shades are up.
Yep,
and that's
you've mentioned that before, and I totally can picture it in my mind's eye. And that there can be no other one. Yeah, he was a historic power hitting second baseman, but he was probably one of the greatest defensive second basemen ever. Yeah. And things like that, like taking the pivot from short. There's one that probably is the one that leaves the impression on our mind, but he did that obviously probably almost 1,000 times.
Well, and they've got Billy and Ernie batting. And they've got Sano throwing, and then Fergie's pitching.
Fergie pitching, yeah.
So another fielder would make sense.
Yeah.
And then, the Sammy statue which they'll never have ever.
A hop
would be the hop. Yeah, it would be a really cool statue.
We sure wouldn't be him handing over money to Manny Alexander.
It's just him and Manny and $80,000 in a towel just disappearing out of a hotel lobby. You know how they have that Bob Newhart statue down by Navy Pier where you can sit on the couch? They have one where you can sit next to Manny and you can take the $80,000 out of the towel. You can just take it. It's coupons to the gift shop. It's 6% off at the gift shop on Tuesdays in November. But you can take that right out of the towel. All right, guys. Well, this was a lot of fun.
Boys.
I don't know why we only do this once a year, but maybe we don't push a good thing, I guess.
Yeah.
But I want to sincerely thank all of you for wasting an incredible amount of time during the year talking to me.
Thank you for having me.
I enjoy it very much.
My pleasure.
I appreciate all of you.
Wouldn't want to waste it any other way.
Yeah, it's the best way to waste it.
So now, Dave, are you off to talk your Hall of Fame ballot on another podcast?
I think I already did that.
Okay, good.
But it will be like Minnesota Twins related, if that gets your juices.
Ooh.
Oof. Wow.
So
part of Locked On Twins now.
Do we think
Did you vote for Joe?
Yeah, I voted for Joe.
Good for you.
Nice.
Do we think Joe's going to get in, or is this one of these where he gets so close this year that it's inevitable he gets in next year?
Definitely to the second thing, and he's doing so well, much better than I expected. I thought there would be a lot of curmudgeons who, then there are reasons why.
Is that because he DH so early? Is that the deal?
Yeah, well, first base.
He moved to first,
30 years old.
Stop playing catcher, I should say.
First base, yeah. For games caught, he's really low on the list. I mean, there's reasons to not vote for him, but I think there's more reasons to vote for him, and so that's why I did.
Did he catch more games than Josh Fegley?
Yeah, and gaining.
Then he's in. That's no, he's a shoe in.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you guys.
All right, boys.
Cheers, fellas.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Hey, guys.
All righty.
Many of us have herpes.